Welcome to MGoRadio 10.9. Michigan takes on the Indiana Hoosiers. And for the first time since 1962, I believe the Indiana Hoosiers are favored in this matchup. They are not merely favored, folks. They are favored by over 2 touchdowns. The Vegas spread is 14.5. Good news is that Bill Connolly still believes in us. Spread is merely 13.
Thanks, Bill.
Or 12. I'm sorry, it's 12. It's 12. And I put together the previews, and of course, I always put a link to ticket availability. $320 is your get-in price at Memorial Stadium this weekend, which is got to be an all-time record. There is no possible way that Memorial Stadium has experienced ticket desires like this, because they're going for their 3rd win over Michigan since 1971. And the strange thing is that you go in and you start looking at Indiana's numbers and who they are and what players they have, and they're not a fluke. Like, I'm not saying that this is a long-term sustainable strategy and, Indiana is going to be a new power in the league. But in terms of what they're doing on a down-to-down basis, they play like an elite team. Now, the one thing they haven't done yet is they haven't actually played a ranked team, or a team that deserves to be ranked, or a team that deserves to be thought about being ranked. I'll get it one of these days. And Michigan isn't that. But they have Ohio State next week and then Purdue. So for their playoff thoughts, and I'm not writing them off against Ohio State by any means, but they will have a lead pipe lock case at 11-1. I don't know about 10-2 because their schedule has been very weak. And without a marquee win, you could see Indiana getting passed by teams that have actually beat someone. So they will be very up for this game for a number of reasons. Michigan will be facing a hostile environment, and they have to go up against the number 1 EPA per pass team in America, possibly without 2 starting corners. So let's start there, Alex. Curtis Rourke, the Ohio transfer, a lot of RPOs, a lot of pass protection, according to Pro Football Focus. Just doesn't look like a passing game with many holes in it.
No, they've been really, really good in the passing attack this year. Curtis Rourke was a guy I was excited about coming into this season. I thought that was a nice pickup for them. He was a really accomplished quarterback in the MAC out of Ohio, which is where his brother Nathan played as well, who's become a really good CFL quarterback, had a little stint in the NFL as a backup as well. But even with all that said, Curtis Rourke, I didn't see this level of play coming. He has been excellent this season. He's thrown only 3 interceptions, one of which was a Hail Mary at the end of the first half in the game against Nebraska. So it's been even better than that appears. 19 touchdowns against it. Biggest thing to me that stands out, 10.5 yards per attempt, one of the highest numbers in the country in that metric. He pushes the ball downfield. And yet, despite that, he's still completing at 73.3%. They really did miss him when he was out with that thumb issue. They still won anyway because Taven Jackson's playing better than he did last year. But Rourke is the guy they need healthy to make a run in the postseason. He's just been phenomenal for them this season. And he really completes this offense. And he's a veteran guy, too. I think 6th year of college football. So this is kind of the 2nd week in a row after Dylan Gabriel last week where we're seeing a really veteran QB who's been around. And that gives you just such a high floor as an offense.
Their wide receiver core is extremely deep. So Michigan, as fans, we were really hyped about the possibility that Donovan McCulley might transfer to Michigan. And God, would he have been helpful this year. But instead, he decides to go back to Indiana after being their leading receiver a year ago and getting like 80% of the contested catches available to him. He can't even get on the field. Now, injury plays a role in there, but even after he gets healthy, he's just kind of boxed out. So he re-enters the portal, and Indiana has 5 different non-McCulley receivers with at least 27 targets this year. Their main tight end has 20. And the guy who stands out above the rest vaguely is Elijah Sarrett, who's a 6'2" transfer, started his college career at St. Francis, which is that even FCS?
I think it's FCS. Yeah.
So
Which
then they transfers.
St. Francis? Aren't there 2 of them? I mean, in
Well,
basketball, there's 2 of them. So
I'm not sure which one, but he transfers to JMU last year, has a crazy season, like 82 catches on 99 targets, 1,200 yards, 15 yards in a catch. Grades out of his mind on PFF. Hasn't quite been at that level this year. His contested catch rate is down, but he's still efficient, effective, 6'2", good body control. You look at the guy and you're like, how did this guy end up at an FCS school?
Yeah, Surratt's a really good player. A fun story about him, he played his high school football at St. Francis in Baltimore. So he went from St. Francis with an E to St. Francis with an I between high school and college. And then it's just been an upward trajectory from there. At James Madison, he was first team All Sun Belt. And this year, yeah, his performance maybe hasn't quite matched what he did in the previous year, but tougher level of competition, obviously. And he's still been really, really good for JMU for Indiana, coming from JMU. And the toughest thing about it is he's not the only weapon. And that's the biggest thing is you've got Omar Cooper on the other side, who's had a really nice season as well. You've got weapons out of the slot, Miles Cross. He came with Rourke from Ohio, so they've got a little chemistry. You have Miles Price, who came in from Texas Tech, Keyshawn Williams from Wake Forest. They brought all these guys in, and all of them are playing at a high level. And between Cooper and Surratt as the deep threats, you get those guys out of the slot with pre-snap motion. They scheme them open. There's just so many different weapons. It's a really hard passing attack to defend so long as you get Rourke the time that he needs to, attack.
And then their offensive line, 80s across the board to Pro Football Focus and pass protection, except for the center, who's at a 72. Like in terms of lines that Michigan has faced this year, they are grading out by far the best in that department. And they run the ball effectively. So the 2 main backs, Tyson Lawton and Justice Ellison, are averaging, about 5.5 yards carry between them. And then the constant threat of RPOs, you look at highlight tapes of any of their receivers, and it's just RPO, and that's not their whole playbook. They are able to do other things, but that is it's been very frustrating for me personally because I'm like, it would work pretty well about these guys just flinging linebackers over the line of scrimmage, RPOs. And I'm concerned from Michigan's perspective because this is a team that doesn't really run them, being coached by an NFL transplant who hasn't been in college since the War of 1812. And it just feels unlikely that Michigan is going to be able to come up with a good plan to slow down an absolutely excellent passing attack. It feels like talent-wise, they've got it. And then tactically, I just don't see Michigan coming up with answers here.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game in the trenches for Indiana just because they haven't played a team with the caliber of players Michigan has along the defensive front. I think that's going to be a litmus test of sorts for this group, even if we think Michigan's back 7 is fairly questionable and Indiana should have matchup advantages, particularly at wide receiver versus corner. But along the line, this will be an interesting test for the Hoosiers to see sort of how they can hold up. Because obviously, if they want to beat Ohio State, if they want to play into the college football playoffs, they're going to have to handle some defensive fronts that are quite a bit better than what they've played to date. I've been impressed with this offensive line so far. I didn't expect it to be this good, but they do have Bob Bostad, the old Wisconsin OL coach, which has been a big story for them. They've got Trey Weidig at right tackle. He came in from Wisconsin. Their left guard, Drew Evans, did as well. But he's done great work with the guys they brought back from the Tom Allen era, including Carter Smith, their left tackle. So they've done really well this year against the defensive lines they've played, but this is a different caliber of defensive line. So we'll see what they can do. The rushing game does merit some mention because I think Justice Ellison is really good. Tyson Lawton is pretty good as well, and he's more of the receiving back of sorts, though he can run well in his own right. So this is just an offense that really, when you look at their season, they've had no bumps in the road. They've gained over 6 yards per play in every single game this year that Curtis Rourke has been healthy for. There's just nobody that's been able to slow him down. But maybe a team with a dominant defensive line could do that and can crack the OL, because Rourke's not a great scrambler. At least he hasn't used it a ton this year. Maybe there's a pathway there. I don't know. We're going to learn that about Indiana this week at least.
I mean, he's a bit of a tank, right? Like, he's the pieces that they have are very like Oregon's team. Like the good tackles, good receivers, a lot of speed in the slot, good running back. The difference is, last week Michigan wasn't really able to get sacks out of their pressures. And I think that's maybe, if there's one difference between the Oregon offense and the Indiana offense, that would be relevant to Michigan. It's that if they do get pressure, Rourke is, he gets the ball away when he's under pressure, but he's already like being sacked when he does it. It's different than just escaping.
I mean, that is, I guess, something to watch out for, but just the nature of this offense is they're going to be running so many RPOs that when the opposition runs an RPO, the first responsibility of the defensive tackles is to defend the run.
Yeah.
And so unless Michigan can actually scheme up something where Rourke is going to have to hold the ball on those, I just don't know if Michigan is going to be able to make it relevant. If they can get him in a long yardage situation, yeah. But first and second down, I'm not. It's hard to see it working out that well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into if we want to talk about the Oregon defense, because there are some similarities to how they run and how Oregon attacked Michigan. But maybe Winks learn some lessons from that. And one thing that they can do, one thing this defense can do, is accelerate once they realize it's in an RPO or even just in a play action. You got Stewart, you got Mason Graham, you got Kenneth Grant, all those guys. The second they read that it's pass, you don't have a whole lot of time. So if the first or second read is covered, that's it. And, Oregon had the juice to kind of get out of that sometimes and make a play, but I don't think Curtis Rourke will. I'm grasping for things, Brian. I'm looking for. Stop looking at me like I'm not saying we're gonna win.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, wow, this guy's really grasping.
Yeah, well, we're trying to come up with reasons. Also, Jair Hill should be back, I think, this week, so they're not going to be without both cornerbacks at least.
Yeah, and whatever's going on with Will Johnson, it's going to be after his battle through a bunch of nagging injuries last year. I would be surprised if we see him back if he's anywhere short of 100%, because right now, he's already put enough on tape. If he comes back and injures himself, there's not, Michigan isn't going to be aiming for anything except, the Mayo Bowl or whatever it is. All right, so let's take a break, come back, talk about the Indiana defense.
Since 2001, Underground Printing has been the Ann Arbor original. Starting from a West Quad dorm room and growing into the go-to source for custom apparel and Michigan gear. Whether you're gearing up for game day or creating custom design for your team or business, Underground Printing has you covered. With 3 convenience stores right on campus, getting your hands on high-quality Wolverine gear has never been easier. Visit Underground Printing today, in-store or online at shop.undergroundshirts.com, where Michigan pride meets top-notch service.
It's Nick Hopwood, CFP and founder of Peak Wealth Management. If you find yourself wondering if you're on the right track for retirement, reach out to us at peakwm.com/mgoblog for a second opinion. I've been sponsoring these guys for years. People keep telling me that my voice is pretty boring and you've been fast-forwarding through my ads. Well, yeah. I'm the guy you trust for your retirement planning and investing. It's not like I'm Gus Johnson or anything. And I really like spreadsheets, okay? It's not like I just sit here and look at your finances and be like, Donovan Edwards, the pistol back.
McCarthy to throw it. McCarthy looking, throws deep, got a wide open receiver. Cornelius Johnson sprinting, touchdown Michigan. 75 yards. They said the kid couldn't throw a deep ball.
I'm going to play a bunch of clips like this all year, so now you can stop fast forwarding through my ads, okay?
Is your online store sluggish, outdated, underperforming? You may be suffering from chronic crappy website disorder. 1 in 3 online stores built by your brother's friend's nephew currently suffers from chronic crappy website. But now, there's hope. Introducing Human Element. Huel has helped hundreds suffering from CCW to turn their online stores around, creating fast, secure, and engaging online experiences that turn visitors into customers and put products back at the top of their search engine game.
Before Huel, I had abandoned carts, browser errors, and poorly animated GIFs. Now, with Huel, I can focus on what I'm actually good at, running my business.
Jeffrey, would you be a deer and pull the Ferrari around?
Side effects may include increased traffic, customer conversions, better ROI, compliments, elation, and early retirement. Why live with the disappointment of chronic crappy website disorder? Speak to your Human Element consultant today to see if Huel is right for you.
Jake Butt here, guys, live down from the National Championship Convention Center down in Houston, and we got some big-time news for you guys, Michigan faithful. We need your help to keep our team. Last year, Champion Circle launched the One More Year Fund to support key players coming back, like Blake Corum, Trevor Keegan, and Zach Sinner, who elected to return to Michigan for one more year. Now we're launching the Those Who Stay NIL campaign. Our rivals are coming after many of our key players, trying to induce them to leave Michigan. It's time for the Michigan family to show our players how much we appreciate them and want them back in the maize and blue. To keep the momentum going, head over to thosewhostayuofm.com. Again, that is thosewhostayuofm.com to support. Go Blue.
Welcome back to MGoRadio 10.9. We'd like to thank Underground Printing. Rishi and Ryan have supported us since blogging replaced yelling at household appliances as mankind's preferred method of one-way sports team interaction. Gear up at UGPMichiganApparel.com or check out our selection on the MGoBlogstore.com, which has a shirt with a guy chilling under a goalpost. We'd also like to thank our associate sponsors, Peak Wealth Management, Realtor and Lender Matt Demarest, Human Element, Ann Arbor Elder Law, Champion Circle, Royal Oath Insurance Group, Michigan Law Grad, Venue by 4M, Winewood Organics, Sharon's Heating and Air Conditioning, Community Pest Solutions, the Autograph app, and Signal Wire, where we are currently recording this. Also, thanks to Oren Levin for the music. All right, the Indiana defense, maybe more surprising than the Indiana offense. So Indiana, at times in the past, has been a fun offensive team with wide receivers and lots of throwing the ball around the yard. And then Rourke goes out, as we discussed in the previous segment, and they win a couple of games with running the ball and defense. And I was like, what's going on? So, and to me, there's one guy who sticks out as a get that Indiana's Kurt Cignetti should not have been able to get, and that's their nose tackle, CJ West. So West comes over from 4 years at Kent State. He has 2 years being graded in the 80s at Pro Football Focus. You know, he's got something like 1,500 college snaps under his belt. He's a fifth-year senior, and Indiana is able to snag him. And the thing about West is that he is a backup who's grading out better than he is. Indiana has depth at defensive tackle, and I don't know if that's ever happened before, Alex.
Probably not much that I can remember. West is a great pickup for him, and really this defense in particular, it's to some degree with the offense. Obviously, they brought a few guys with them from JMU, but this defense is really built on those JMU transfers, and then they were able to slide West in, slide a couple Old Dominion guys in, and that's how they rounded out and built this thing. There's very few pieces left over from the Tom Allen era. And the JMU transfers they brought have given them stars at 3 different levels of this defense. On the defensive line, it starts with Mikel Camara, came in from JMU. He was second team All Sun Belt last year. He's right near the top in the FBS this season among edge defenders and things like sacks and pressures. Also a good run defender. You put him next to CJ West from Kent State, good player. And that gives you a really tough front. And that's been the crux of a really good run defense. They're second in college football in fewest rushing yards allowed per game. Only Army is more suffocating than them. And you look through week after week, different opponents have been able to rip off a 20-yard run, a 30-yard run, but down to down, there's been so little success. And they're coming off a game against Michigan State where Nate Carter and K'Ron Lynch-Adams each rushed for under 2 yards per carry and 5 to 10 carries. And the Spartans basically gave up because there was no point. And that feels pretty ominous for Michigan going into this game.
Yeah, well, Michigan has a couple of weak spots. They have better blockers at a couple spots than most teams in the country, but they just haven't been able to be consistent. And then because of the issues with their passing game, the last 2 opponents have just teed off against the run and haven't really experienced the downside of that. Now, in the second half, Oregon did a little bit because Michigan was able to hit a couple things over the middle to Colston Loveland on play action. You saw Davis Warren take a step forward. And I think that's what you're looking for from Michigan in this game is like, can Davis Warren look like he did in the second half against Oregon?
Yeah, they're going to need a good performance from Warren just because the rushing game looks like tough sledding. And Indiana has some decent players in their pass defense as well. Coverage grades out pretty well overall. They give you a lot of zone coverage, 2 high looks. They have a good corner, D'Angelo Pons. He's only 5'9", playing in the outside, but he's had a good season for them. He had 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 against Washington. It's a big reason they were able to win that game despite Rourke being injured. And then you look around. Besides that, they're sort of nickel Amari Farrell has, I think, 4 interceptions himself, including 2 last week against MSU. One of them where he just reads Aiden Childs' eyes and jumps the route. That feels a little worrying with Davis Warren in this game, but hey, he's playing well, coming off a pretty good performance, and maybe he can keep it going against this group.
Yeah.
The other thing.
I'm sorry. I wanted to point out the linebackers are really where when I watch this team, I know you like Kamara a lot, but Jalen Walker especially, and also Aiden Fisher, both JMU transfers, both guys they do not miss tackles, and after grading our guys all, they are as good as.
Wait, but we don't miss tackles either, according to Wink Martindale. So we've got that going for us. I'm just kidding.
I'm not. I'm gonna walk away. You're gonna be like, okay, now we're gonna talk about Oregon. I'm just gonna put down my headset and walk away. But yeah, man, these guys they dodge blockers very well, and then they tackle. And it's when you look at what's going on with their run defense and why it's so good, and why sometimes teams actually break a few, is these guys, if they get blocked, that they don't have another answer. They're basing the defense off the fact that these guys are going to make plays. And then the Michigan State game was eye-opening because they never missed. Like, they never got blocked. And that's Michigan State's offensive line a little bit. It's not like our offensive line is that much better. So, yeah.
If Andrew Gentry remains out and Link is in, that seems like a pretty bad matchup for Michigan. Indiana leads the Big Ten with 31 sacks, and the next closest competitor is 6 sacks back. So they've gotten after the quarterback more than anyone else in the league. So Oregon, got some pressure on Michigan, but the offensive line was able to hold up considerably better than they did early in the year against Texas. If we get a full-on Texas meltdown and the pass production goes back to completely unacceptable, then there's just no way Michigan's moving the ball. And this is going to look like the Michigan State game.
Indiana generates a lot of negative plays, a lot of turnovers. I think they have 11 interceptions in 9 games. Their pass rushing front, I don't really think they have a ton of great organic pass rushers, but they have the ability to drop their edges. They can rush the linebackers. They can rush corners. It's coming from all different places. and they really just attack downhill. They get after the quarterback in the rushing defense side of things. Their linebackers are good. They get involvement from the DBs as well. And like Seth mentioned, I mean, they just tackle really well. That was the most impressive part of that MSU performance, is that they attack like a pack of rabid dogs and they make the tackles. They're just really fundamentally sound. This IU team, I think, might be the best coach team that I've watched this year. They're just so well drilled. They know what's going on every play. And it's going to be probably tough sledding.
All right. Special teams, Indiana doesn't have a lot that stands out. They're solid in all aspects. They're not great in any. Score predictions, Seth.
43-17.
Oh, my God.
Indiana cascades on you, man. Like, every Indiana game, you get behind a little bit, and you try to do something stupid, and our coaches are the kind that are going to get completely cascaded by these guys.
Alex.
Yeah, I'll go 31-14. It just doesn't feel like a great matchup for Michigan. If they can't run the ball, they're getting in passing downs. It's going to be a little tricky. And if Will Johnson's not playing, I don't love the other side of this. So just doesn't feel like a week for an upset.
All right, I guess I'll go 32-16. Let's go, because that reminds me of basketball.
Maybe we'll talk about that.
We're going to take a break and talk about that.
Hey, it's Nick Hopwood, certified financial planner and founder of peakwm.com/mgoblog. If you're wondering where you stand relative to your retirement goals, keep us in mind. Can we help you retire with peak confidence? Yes. Can they catch him?
No! Donovan Edwards again, 85 yards!
Maize and Blue Nation, it's Tom Brady. I founded Autograph with one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. That's why I'm excited to announce the official launch of the Autograph app, the app that gives die-hard Wolverine fans like you a one-stop shop for your Michigan fandom. Autograph has all the best Michigan content in one place and rewards you for all the things you're already doing as a fan, like listening to this podcast. It's time to feed your fandom with the Autograph app. Let's go and go blue.
Oh my God, it's Owen Rosen. You're back.
I am back.
Oh, man, I'm so glad to have you back with us. So you got a new company, Royal Oath Insurance, OATH?
You got it, Royal Oath Insurance, right out of Clinton Township. Super excited to be back.
I'm so glad. Man, we had so many people, word of mouth, they told me they went through you before. They say you're the Swiss Army knife of insurance.
Yeah, something like that. Jumped off for a bit, was actually working for an actual insurance carrier, but I'm back in the game, and a lot of people have reached out to me in the meantime, but super excited to be back and helping the MGoBlog community and the entire Michigan community. Absolutely.
And you do Michigan, but you can also help in other states too, correct?
We can. That was something in the past really I didn't have as much capability of, but definitely can do that. I know we've got Michigan Nation all over the country. So
all right, cool. All right, tell people where they can call you.
586-229-1026.
All right, or visit Royal Oath, OATH, right? RoyalOathInsurance.com.
Yep, call or text me anytime.
All right, thanks, Owen. I'm so glad to have you back.
Thanks, Seth. Glad to be back.
Winewood Organics is Ann Arbor's only cannabis microbusiness. It's a place where plants are grown in living soil, where nearly every product is made, mixed, trimmed, and packed by hand, where first-time customers save 25% on everything from old-school hash to live resin carts. You can find them just west of downtown or at winewoodorganics.com. Winewood Organics, a place where the weed is better.
The only thing we can be sure of about the future is that it will be absolutely fantastic. I'm thinking of the incredible breakthrough made possible by developments in communications.
Arthur C. Clarke's 1964 vision is now reality with SignalWire, a cloud platform that enables developers to build the applications that will reshape the future of communications.
These things will make possible a world in which we can be in instant contact with each other wherever we may be.
You can add cutting-edge, real-time video and audio to any product, website, or application with APIs and SDKs for developers of all skill sets. SignalWire is optimized for high quality and low latency communication functionality for video, voice, and text messaging capabilities.
Almost any skill could be made independent of distance. Men will no longer commute. They will communicate.
See for yourself at signalwire.com. Use code 2021 and receive $25 in developer credit. Go to signalwire.com.
SignalWire Communications OGs, original geeks of programmable communication.
I can't say this train's too fast. I'm in twos if this one will last. No, can I ride it out?
Welcome back to MGoRadio 10.9. We now turn our attention to Michigan's men's basketball, which started the season off on Monday with a 100-1-53 victory over Cleveland State. They flung themselves into the top 25 in the Ken Pom rankings with a emphatic victory over a team that was pretty decent a year ago. And to me, there were a lot of encouraging things. And of course, that's something that you would say after a complete blowout of a reasonably good team. But you go over to barttorvik.com, and Michigan had as many dunks as mid-range twos.
So is that what the season's going to be?
Good.
Is that what we're saying? Is that like we're gonna dunk it all? It's just going to
Well, so I kind of feel like that's what May's MO is. And we didn't really see a whole lot of contribution from Vlad Golden. We saw a lot of Danny Wolf playing at the 5, and doing things that fives should not be able to do, like flat out. Being able to drive from the 3-point line, 2-3 controlled dribbles, be able to spin past guys, finish at the basket. And there are going to be fives who are able to better defend that than the Cleveland State ones. But I'm not sure how many, because the bigger you are, the less likely you are to be able to keep up with Wolf there. And the thing about Wolf is if you have guys rotating over, he's going to be able to pass the ball. And we've talked about this in the run up to the season, is it felt like a very flexible team. It felt like a team that could pinpoint whatever your weaknesses are on defense and really get after them. And I think Wolf's performance in this game really reinforces that take.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, their center is Cleveland State was not a good team, and I don't think they're going to be good. They have a lot of transfers, so I mean they were starting 3 transfers and a freshman, I think. So it's not.
Yeah,
like
I mean
last
who?
year's...
Well, but yeah, it's like don't really know,
right?
But I want to contrast this Cleveland State program, which was 21-15 a year ago in the Horizon League, a decent program, with the dregs where you're playing a MEAC team that went like 4-30 a year ago,
like
which
the 2 teams that Wake Forest has already played.
Right. Yeah. So like there's a huge gap between teams where you just watch them come on the floor and like these guys are not going to be able to do anything because they're all 5'10".
Right.
And Cleveland State, which looks like a real program.
Yeah. Oh, and my point was, though, Dylan Arnett is one of the guys that was part of that team last year, their center. And he's kind of a switchable center. Like, the one thing that he has is he's, a 6'9" guy who can guard a 4 if you want to. And the way that Danny Wolf just put him in a blender, that was like, wow. I mean, and, I don't want to read too much into it. But, if you're going to have Wolf being able to do that to another center, and then you can hit them with Golden and just and pound them. There's just there's a spot right there where you just have no answers, and there's going to be no answers all the way up. And they were doing this without Reuben Jones, who when we were previewing, we were all like, Reuben Jones, this is going to be their dude, right? He's going to be the guy who makes it all work. And then Trey Donaldson is just like, oh, I'll throw out 7 assists. Roddy Gale is just faster than everybody else on the court. Like,
well, and
they're all
the thing about Gale is that he's only on the floor for 19 minutes. It's not foul trouble. He has 3 fouls at the end of the game. Like if he needed to be out there for 30 minutes, he could have been out there for 30 minutes. And that's without Reuben Jones. So Brooks gets 12 minutes, LJ Cason gets 22. And while I think that those are not going to continue into the competitive portions of the schedule, like you put Brooks out there for 5 or 10 minutes at a time and he'll give you something. I don't think he's going to create a whole lot inside the arc in year one, but he's long, he's rangy, he's a defensive pest. He's a guy who, he knocked down a 3 in this game. He forced a steal. Like, if there's a point at which he has to play 20 minutes a game and do much more than be a 3-and-D guy, that's going to be a problem. But that's one, highly unlikely, and two, if you do just need him to be a 3-and-D guy, he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's probably what the number 10 guy on the roster right now, depending on where you want to slot in Pippen.
Yeah.
So they have a unreasonable amount of depth, and they are currently the second fastest team in the country, which is probably not something that's going to stand up.
Oh, I definitely took a screenshot of Ken Pom after that game, just to like remember when Michigan was, I think they're number 3 overall in 3-point percentage. They're 1 overall in field goal percentage. Like, yeah, crazy stats.
All that is fine, and I have confidence that Michigan is going to be a good, effective field goal possession percentage team this season. That number in terms of pace, Michigan fans have never seen anything like it. Like, Ken Pom started tracking average possession length in, I think, 2011, and Michigan has never been higher than 148th, which happened in one of the Juwan Howard seasons. And even Howard's teams usually hovered around 200, and of course John Beilein was Princeton level and like 350. So there are trade-offs there. Michigan's turnover rate in this game was 21%. Obviously, that's going to be something that you want to bring down, but they are trying to play fast, and it paid off with an effective field goal percentage of 80% on shots taken in the first 10 seconds of the shot clock. Now, their overall percentage was 77, so it wasn't
marginally better in transition. A lot of that was created off of steals, right? Like they were turning Cleveland State over all the time, but that was the other thing that was sticking out, and we have to include LJ Kason's defense as well. They are just they hound you, right? And we talked about Gale only playing 19 minutes. We're saying like that. Oh, that's the beginning of the season in Cleveland State and whatnot. If they can go 9-10 deep, they can play that way, right? You can play up tempo. You can put these guys out there for 50%, 60% of the game, and then rotate through because you have guys like Kason. Looks like a guy who's not. He's in the rotation. He is in the rotation. I don't think he's going to be like back end of the rotation. I think he's pushing Burnett already. And that's just his first game as a freshman. So, he's a find. You can. We have guards, man. we have guards. There's
lots and lots of guards. That's true.
So they can hound you, and then you're going to the net, and you're trying to get away from this guy, and all of a sudden Danny Wolf's arm is in the way, and that's. I think a lot of the runouts were just created because it was they're coming off of turnovers.
Yeah, and so 11 steals in this game, which was about a 3-game stretch for a Beilein team.
Right.
And so there are a couple of concerns that need to get cleaned up. One is 20 offensive rebounds for Cleveland State. And this is not a team that has serious size concerns, and I think that a lot of that is probably just going to be a fluke. They do need to be more conscientious about getting to the weak side because that's where Arnett was able to do a lot of his damage. He was able to pop off the guy who was guarding him and sort of slide over and got some fortunate bounces, but it is a concern. And then we mentioned it already, but the turnover rate the first 3 games has been elevated, and there are moments in these games when it gets to be a huge blowout where people lose focus. And I think when you're up by 30 or 40, you're naturally going to start bring out your inner Ricky Davis and doing some stuff that you wouldn't do in a competitive game. So I think that has a small part to play in it, but also Wolf has 5 turnovers in this game. Golden has 4 turnovers in this game. Those aren't necessarily look at me, Mom, what I'm trying to do. Thanks. Now, Wolf and Golden are established college players with established turnover rates, and I don't think that those are necessarily going to last. But if we are looking And we have to look very closely if we are going to try to find some things that have been wrong with the two exhibitions in this game. Those are the two things. And then, the other concern is what happens when Wolf and other guys who, like Walters or Cheddar, get in difficult defensive matchups. And that's not something I'm sure we're going to know a whole lot about, even after playing a couple of these teams, because the TCUs and the Wake Forests of the world are going to have a dude or two, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to consistently get to Michigan's weak spots. And the caveat there is that Michigan does switch a ton.
Yeah.
So they're either going to have to stop doing that in certain matchups, and then fight through screens and see how that feels, or that statement I just made will be completely incorrect.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it'll be interesting to see which direction it goes.
I mean, we could talk about their next opponent because we're going to play them on Sunday. Wake Forest likes to push the ball as well, and that's important for them because Hunter Salas. These are all names you're going to remember from Michigan recruiting. Hunter Salas and Efton Reed are their two main dudes. Salas was a 5-star. He played for Gonzaga. Didn't really develop a three-pointer. He's only 1 for 9 on threes this year in 2 games. And that's kind of his thing. If he can get to the net, he is, he nails his free throws.
Well,
He's a great finisher.
He was a 41% guy a year ago. So, that's an aberration. But, they're using him more as, a point. But he was at Wake a year ago. So
he was there last year, and he hit 41% last year. 78% of those were assisted, and I was trying to get into Synergy last night and couldn't. But it was based off of something on a Wake message board that said, if someone sets him up, he can hit it. If he's trying to take his own, and this is what's been the problem with Wake so far. They played 2 teams kind of closely who are in the bottom 300 of KenPom. One of them is the 4th worst team in the country. And
Coppin State, they won by 15.
And then North Carolina A&T, I think, was the other. But that game was for 40 minutes, for 35 minutes out of that. It was a back and forth game. And then they just had a run because A&T got foul trouble and they have no other guys to put out there. But, for a team that has as much talent as these guys do, they got Hunter Salas, a 5-star. Efton Reed, you probably remember him from IMG. Michigan recruited him as a big. He had a career to get here, but, he's a senior big. Omaha Billow is another 5-star on this team. So they have talent, and these guys like to run out. So it's going to be an interesting test for Michigan because I guess if we try to play the way we played against Cleveland State, it kind of plays into their hands. And if you just zone these guys and make them shoot outside, they have guys who can't shoot threes, missing threes. They also have the guys, no one's hitting threes on this team right now, but they're mad that Salas is taking 3-pointers instead of trying to get to the lane because that's what he's best at, right? He's a big talent. He's a major talent, super fast, bounces out of the, can jump out of the gym, and to have him playing point guard and trying to take, pull-up shots is the worst thing.
All right, well, we're going to take a break, come back, and we have a gimmicky top 5 for you of things we would rather be writing about than football right now.
In southeastern Michigan, the yearly cost for a nursing home averages
approximately $100,000.
It doesn't have to, though. Reed McCarthy founded Ann Arbor Elder Law after handling a tricky situation for his own family. Years of experience later, his boutique firm works with clients across southeast Michigan, dealing with Medicaid planning, long-term care, and tax, disability, and family law, not to mention family dynamics. If you have a family member who may need that level of care, or if you're ready to start your own estate plan, Reed can give you a plan for the future. Visit AnnArborElderLaw.com or call 734-945-9693. That's 734-945-9693.
It's the time of year where cracks in your defense get exposed. Good thing to fix is a phone call away. Community Pest Solutions is a lockdown defender for homes and businesses. If you're hearing noises in your walls or attic or dealing with bug problems, it's time to call Community. To schedule an inspection, just Google Community Pest Solutions or hit up their website at pestfreemi.com.
Hey, fellow Michigan fans, this is Matt Demarest, Realtor and Lender. For a decade now, you've heard me on the podcast talk about mortgages, and I've helped hundreds of fellow Michigan fans in that capacity, including Brian and Seth. But many of you don't know I'm a real estate broker as well. I promise to make buying, selling, or financing homes simple and cost-effective anywhere in the state of Michigan. Whether you're upsizing, downsizing, buying a vacation home, or building a real estate investment portfolio, send me a text or give me a call. It's never too early to make a plan, and the call is always free. My number is 734-882-8194. Again, 734-882-8194. Or you can find me online at realtorandlender.com. That's realtorandlender.com. Whether you want to buy, sell, or finance a home, or even all three, I promise to provide the experience so many of you have come to expect over the years. And as always, thank you, and go blue. NMLS 1011726, Equal Housing Lender.
Since 2001, Underground Printing has been the Ann Arbor original. Starting from a West Quad dorm room and growing into the go-to source for custom apparel and Michigan gear. Whether you're gearing up for game day or creating custom design for your team or business, Underground Printing has you covered. With 3 convenient stores right on campus, getting your hands on high-quality Wolverine gear has never been easier. Visit Underground Printing today, in-store or online at shop.undergroundshirts.com, where Michigan pride meets top-notch service.
Hi, this is Pete with Sharon's Heating and Air Conditioning. You've probably noticed that we are terrible about keeping our podcast advertisements up to date and topical to Michigan sports. Probably because we're so busy doing preventative maintenance for all of our many happy customers. We know no one is excited to call their HVAC contractor, and to make that a rare occurrence, you should regularly maintenance your system. Call us or text us to find out more about the benefits of our preventative maintenance plans, including savings on service calls and priority scheduling. Whatever the season, we want you to be comfortable for that next glorious Michigan victory.
I can't believe I'm doing this. If you find yourself in the penalty box, you want a Michigan man arguing your case, call criminal law attorney and former prosecutor Jonathan Paul tonight. It's 248-924-9458. Or visit his old website at michiganlograd.com.
I'm an arrow, I'm a jet plane. I don't stop moving till I hit the ground. I don't stop, cold is burning, gears keep turning, and I'm not supposed to make.
Welcome back to MGoRadio 10.9. Thank you for the count in from 1, Seth. I appreciate that a great deal.
I'm sorry. I
Like,
didn't know how long the music had been playing. I had to run out for a second. I was like, oh, God, I wonder if everyone's just sitting here listening to music.
You're really kind of challenging the whole zeitgeist of what a countdown consists of.
Go.
All right. So we're gonna be level with you guys. It's been a little rough to write about a football team that's kind of just waiting for next year, not playing very well, etc. So we've been energized by the basketball team, and we're like, okay, what are some other things that we're kind of jazzed to think about or write about in the coming weeks? So it's a positive outlook. We're reaching a time when other things are possible. So Seth, you're number 5.
Gritty Detroit sports teams.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the Lions are really fun to talk about right now. You know, we got Jared Goff cheers breaking out in completely weird places, including the election of all places. In my precinct, there was like a Jared Goff cheer that broke out.
Okay.
You know, Tigers are kind of fun to talk about right now. The Pistons actually kind of not Pistons, not so much. Red Wings look a little gritty. Like it's just Detroit sports teams. It's where it's at right now. I'm having nice conversations. If people want to talk to me about these teams, I would be happy to talk about them.
All right, Alex, you're number 5.
Gotta give a shout out to Michigan women's basketball. They had a really surprisingly strong first game against South Carolina, lost by only 6 to the number 1 team in the country. They were 20.5-point underdogs. Great first game from true freshman Silas Swords. I'm really looking forward to watching and thinking about the women's basketball team. They've got a really good freshman class coming in. It's going to be an interesting season to watch.
My number 5 is major junior players are now eligible to play college hockey. A seismic change, which was coming down the pipe and was just made official. I think yesterday. So we've already seen Mark Kosick's kid Noah sign for his WHL team with the full intent of arriving at Michigan in a couple of years. Like, how is that going to change the face of college hockey? Like we've had an era where older teams dominated, and it kind of felt like the last couple of years we were moving back towards Final Fours with Michigan, BC, BU, and Denver in them. And like, there will be a number of 20-year-old CHL players who might be pushing out Americans. There's been rumors that the USHL teams are applying to be in the OHL, which were quickly deleted. It's going to be a 5-year period of a vast amount of change for developmental hockey, and Michigan is going to have to get through them. And I think everybody's going to be flying blind for a while. So it's going to be a really interesting period. Seth, you're number 4.
My number 4 is Seth's dumb off-season takes on like history and our rankings, and I don't know, we haven't done them in a while because we've been so busy with national championship and whatnot. But I'm going to be able to get back on my stuff, like Michigan all-time best players from Michigan, and Michigan all-time like best 3-star, 3.5-star recruits and whatnot. And now that we have all these guys from the, I'm excited to kind of look historically at the 2023 team and kind of see where these guys fit. And I've got a list now. I have like a whole bunch of things that I've been saving up that I didn't get to write about last offseason or the offseason before that because we wanted to actually talk about the current football team. But I got really good at talking about not the current football team, and I have the skills, and I have the articles, and I'm ready to do it this offseason.
Alex, you're number 4.
Michigan football offseason early content between transfer portal and end of the recruiting class. It's going to be a little bit of a quick jaunt when the season ends with signing day coming up so quickly. But unlike previous years where it was kind of a trickle of guys that were, interesting but not that exciting, this year seems to be pretty different. We've got the Babalola hello to catch up to. We still haven't done the Andrew Marsh one, but these are exciting recruits. And then you toss in potential transfer portal QB that there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel with football content once the actual games are done.
Well, and when Dusty May was hired, like, I spent a bunch of time on the roster sprint, basically posting daily posts. And do you know how long the fall portal is open this year? 19 days. So that period of time is just going to be nuts for all of college football, but especially a team like Michigan that's going to be looking for a lot of pieces to fill a lot of holes. My number 4 is decking materials. Having a deck put in. I had to talk with my mom about what color I wanted, and I don't know. I'm a man. I can tell the difference between certain colors, but how they make me feel is a conversation I'm not prepared for. So we went with the English walnut. There we go. That's what happened. Seth, you're number 3.
My number 3 are the things that my kids are interested in. You're gonna learn the difference between my kids very quickly here. My daughter has been researching fan edits online, and we download them and watch. So we watched the Star Wars 77 project, which is fans took all the basically try to recreate Star Wars exactly what it was in the theaters. And then we found The Hobbit, 2 different versions of The Hobbit. There's the Tolkien edition and the Bilbo edition. There's a lot of argument online which version, edited down version of The Hobbit is the actual best, and both of them are far better than the 3 movies that were put out there. So that's my daughter's stuff. My son actually asked me to make sure that people. He asked, "Can you talk to people about what I'm into?" And I'm like, "What are you into?" He goes, building Legos. I want people to know that I'm really good at building Legos. So now he's famous. I want people to, when people see him, they'll say, "Hey, you're the guy who's really good at building Legos." So I'm excited to tell people about that.
Alex, tell us about your children.
My number 3 was general fall into winter weather. This is my favorite time of year. Some people have, seasonal depression. They don't like when it gets colder. I love it. This is a great time of year. We just passed the fall colors. It was weirdly warm in October. We had still a 70-something degree day on Monday, Tuesday. I am very excited for our dip into the 50s, proper fitting weather for hockey season, and I just love this time of year.
Somehow you're older than all of us, Alex, at the same time. You're being infuriatingly young. My number 2 is arguing about daylight savings time. Because I have small children that I take to the bus in the morning to go to school. And the people are always like, you got to think about the children because, they got to have sunlight in the morning when they go to school. And I say, screw that. I want my hour of afternoon sunshine back because it's going to start getting dark at like 5:10. And that makes me crazy. And I don't like it. So there's always the arguments that people are like, oh, we got to get rid of, it's got to be standard time all the time. And I'm like, it's got to be like daylight savings time all the time. It's like, I can't comprehend the other side of this debate. It just makes me insane.
Does anybody not have to get rid of leaves? Like it's all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock and all of a sudden it's dark out and you're like, I still have raking to do. This is not right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not right. It's wrong. And so, that's a heated topic at this time of year. Seth, you're number 2.
Bryce Underwood recruitment. This is the last 2 times Michigan went after the number 1 overall quarterback. The first time it was a guy in my grade, and I was very dumb about recruiting. I was very new to it, and I was like, "Oh God, if we don't get Drew Henson, it's the great." And FSU is cheating, and I didn't get to enjoy it at all. And then the second time we did the whole Terrell Pryor thing, and this was like, okay, Rich Rod is going to fail if we don't get this guy. Turned out to be true, but it was still like the every single thing. And he was the worst kid to chase. Like there was nothing likable about Terrell Pryor, but he was our savior, and so we had to be like, I hope he doesn't like that Corvette. Darn it, he likes the Corvette. But this one's fun. This one's a lot. I'm having fun with it, Bright. We have a tailgate tonight at the guy's school. We have like people watching ECU scores because if the interim coach does well, that means they might not hire the LSU quarterbacks coach who Bryce Underwood really likes. We got message board insiders explaining why Belleville's beef was like a Harbaugh thing, and then everybody chimes in on like what the Belleville beef was. And these are not just like crazy insiders. These are people who like sit around and pay close attention to high school football in Michigan close by, and they all like they're like, hey, I'm an assistant coach at Dexter, and here's what I think. And it's like this is fun, man. This is a ride.
All right, Alex, you're number 2.
Predictably, Michigan hockey. They had a great weekend last week against BU. Went on the road against the top 5 team. Got 75% of a sweep, something like that. They won the Friday game. Then they won it in overtime on Saturday. We were treated to delightful Boston accents during those ESPN Plus broadcasts. And now they're playing host to Notre Dame this weekend, first Big Ten games. It's a different kind of team, more defensive, a little bit grittier, but it's been enjoyable to watch so far. And I'm excited to see how they do once the Big Ten slate really gets going.
My number 2 is shots at the rim versus mid-range jumpers. I have a feeling that this year, like it's going to be like, oh, well, is that a good mid-range jumper? I don't know. We didn't take it. So like just the ratios, like what makes a good shot and why is Michigan getting so many good shots? That feels like a narrative we're going to be talking about through the basketball season, which is a much better narrative than the like, why don't we have any guards narrative from the last couple of years. It's much more rolls off the tongue. Seth, you're number 1.
My number 1 is, just to be honest, I can't wait to talk about Big Ten basketball teams because I have spent the off season not caring about other things and just kind of like I figured out who belongs where, and I'm ready. I have been ready. We had our basketball preview session. I walked in with like a big, machine, like an Excel that I could like punch one number in and it would tell us the next team, and I have like all of the charting of all these guys, and I've been like watching the transfers and I am like raring to go on Big Ten basketball season with all these takes, and I have not gotten like a single one out yet because no one cares.
And then we told him we had to talk about Michigan, and he was like, "Oh, hamburgers."
Yeah.
But we have another bye week coming up next week, and we will be talking in depth about the future of the men's side in Big Ten basketball next week.
I'm excited.
Alex, you're number 1.
Well, Seth kind of co-opted this with his number 5, but it's got to be the Detroit Lions. You're 7-1 on the year. It's been a bizarre season in that they are 7-1, and yet I'm still mad about the one loss, which should not have happened if we got even a standard Jared Goff performance in that game. But win over Green Bay last week, 3 in a row at Lambeau. It's a uncomfortable feeling thinking about the ceiling of this team, but it has been a joy each weekend to get a healthy dose of very fun, very good winning football. Last year, we got it on both days. Unfortunately, this year, just one day of the weekend, but thank you to the Detroit Lions for that.
So basketball and the Detroit Lions, two very important things in the current Southeast Michigan zeitgeist. And of course, I'm right there with you. My number 1 is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Which I have never posted on Blue Sky before, but someone was asking about like, oh, what are the things we do on Blue Sky? I would like your opinion about Deep Space Nine. It's like, I have lots of those. So I posted about it, and if you go to Blue Sky, MGO blog, you'll see my takes. But in short, a lot of really meaningful father-child relationships that you don't really see in other Star Trek shows or media in general. It's my favorite Star Trek series of all time, and I highly recommend it. Although there's one episode that's really dumb, and you'll figure out which one that is later. All right. There we go.
Yeah.
We managed to keep it positive, I think, for the most part.
I thought that was a
good
very
job.
positive segment. Have we done the our take on Star Trek? I know we've talked about it before off air a couple times. That like,
what is that? I don't like take on Star Trek.
That Deep Space Nine is great, and that Voyager is terrible, and that like people at the time got them completely flipped.
Oh, Voyager is terrible because they have one episode which is like, oh my god, all this crazy stuff happened. It was like a really great episode, and then they just undo it. Right. It's like, no, that never happened. That's their whole thing. I hate it. Anyway,
bye.
Good night.
Boris is a mayor and a land surveyor with plans of